Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Ty. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Spirit Journey Collective. I have a really wonderful guest today. Her name is Corbie Mitleid. She's a certified tarot master, a past life specialist, a psychic medium author, and so much more. So I can't wait to dive in and just see, her story and everything that she offers. So thank you so much for being here today, Corbie.
It's great to be asked. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you again, like what you offered, maybe a little more detailed than what I just said.
All right. That's what I call the 30-second elevator speech. I have been reading since 1973 when I was a senior in high school. I am a full-time psychic medium, intuitive counselor. 6 days a week, 14 hours a day. I read about 1,000 people a year. But I believe in practicality. I am not here to amaze you with my wiki-woo or tell you that you're going to meet a guy with blue eyes and a limp and a bar. It's here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it or around it. Here's your toolbox for rock and roll. Because people come to me for four things: the everyday tour bus, house car job kids. Okay, God, you put me here. Why? Past lives. Why am I afraid of oatmeal? Or why do I have this thing about 17th century Belgium? They want to speak to their spirit guide Binky and how's dead Aunt Mabel. That's what it is. So as you can tell, I take my work very seriously, but me not so much. And when my clients realize laughter is okay at my table, shielding comes down, the information goes in.
I love that when you're saying how that was the 30-second elevator pitch. That's a good way to put it, just the quick introduction. But yeah, no, that's amazing that you do this full time. How long have you been doing it full time?
Full time since 9/11, professionally since 1994. But I have been reading, as I said, since I was a senior in high school.
Yeah, that's incredible. I am a professional reader myself, which is why I was asking. I'm not fully, my business is doing okay and I'm pretty happy with it, but definitely not ready to go full time. It's always inspiring though when I get to hear the stories of like, it's possible. It is definitely possible.
It's like any other entrepreneurial business. You are pedal to the metal. For instance, for 18 years, I was on the road 45 weekends a year, coast to coast and into Canada doing psychic fairs and expos, to the point where my nickname was the Travel Channel. But the universe kept telling me, no. We've got to get you off the road. You belong at home. And I kept saying, no, I love being a Hilton Diamond. I walk in, they do the we're not worthy thing. It's great. Yeah. So in July of 19, I got a herniated disc and pinched nerves. 4 months later, when the doctors got me mostly back, he said, we're really sorry, but your career is over. You can't do 10-hour drives anymore, and you can't load in and load out all your heavy equipment. So I scrambled to get everything online and got it all set up by about February of 2020. And what happened the next month? But the advent of what I call Murder Hornet Bingo and Hold My Beer. And all the shows collapsed. If you only did shows, your income tanked. I have never looked back. And frankly, at age 69, being home is a lot better than on the road all the time.
I love how we think we know what we need, and then the universe kind of redirects us, sometimes gently, sometimes with a 2x4, but it's always for our highest good in the end.
Yeah, it looks at us and says, thank you for sharing. You may think that if you wish, but we're putting you over here. So
yeah. And it was like preparing you for 2020, because imagine if you didn't have that chance to set up first.
Everything worked the right way.
That's beautiful. So I know you said you've been reading since high school. Have you always known that you were gifted with psychic mediumship, or was that something that you fell into and discovered as you grew up?
When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes. It's a kid's book. And I went, oh, there's magic in the world. I want to go find it. That's why in 1973, Live and Let Die came out. Jane Seymour was Solitaire, the card reader. I jumped. Frankly, at that point, we were all hippies. You had your elephant bell bottoms, your David Crosby fringe jacket, and your deck. 5 years later, everybody else had moved on to roller skates and disco balls, but I stuck with the cards. The stories that they could tell, how they would roll the stories out for me was fascinating. And words are my drug of choice. That's why I'm a writer. So to be able to tell the stories to clients and help them put things together, I found more fun than I could tell you.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That's one of the things that I love about tarot is, and I feel like one of my gifts is being able to see the themes, seeing how the story unfolds and then being able to relay that. And I've had people tell me like, wow, you just like, you painted the picture, exactly the energetics of what I needed to hear. And I think that's one of the reasons I love about tarot too. Like I love oracles, they're beautiful, but I like the nitty gritty, and tarot really just, it likes to get in there.
Yeah, there are places for both tarot and oracle cards. Since I'm using a Zoom screen, I can't really show you, but I have on my desk my standard tarot, which is Tarot Illuminati by Eric Dunn. Love that. It's very lush and it's so much nuance. It's really great for deep dish reading. But I also have 7 oracle decks, each one of which has come to me for a specific purpose. John Gray's Karma and Relationship deck, that's when someone comes to me and says, where the hell are they, he, she? Why can't I get my relationship working? I use the Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud and Jessica Macbeth. And that's the very serious, you need a clue brick upside the head. These are not ootsy cutesy fairies. These guys march in your head and give you homework. I've got the Osho Zen deck because it's very philosophical and can give you the underlying nuance of what you need to know. But they all kind of light up and go, me, I want to play right now, and go right to them. But I also have a children's deck, which is very important. If you are a professional reader and it's a very crowded show and someone is there getting a reading from you and they were not able to send their little one to a babysitter, so she's trying to listen to your reading and Muffin is going, mommy, 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 card, 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 one card, one card. And so she looks at you and says, do me a favor, will you let Muffin pull a card, please? I mean, and then we'll get on with the reading. But if all you have is a tarot deck, what are you going to do if it's this one? Look, Muffin, death! No, kid'll have nightmares, you'll get sued. So this is cat wisdom. And Muffin can pull a little card that says healthy diet, and it shows a frog and a kitten. Or she can go mystery, and there are 2 little kitties in a mood. This will not give the kid nightmares. So sometimes oracle decks are your best friend, but they are in certain circumstances. I totally agree.
Yeah, when I do events for like, parties and things like that, and I have an animal oracle deck that I'll use. And I've done that for the younger ones that, want to pull a card and see what animal they pull. And then it's nice because the card itself will have a little bit of a description on what it's about. And so, yeah, I've definitely utilized that. And the only other oracle that I had is the moon deck. And that one, that one had been calling me. I'd see it, like I'd be scrolling and I'd see it and I'd see it. And I'm a Cancer moon and a Cancer sun. So I'm very, very Cancer, there's lots of moon in my chart. So I finally was like, yeah, okay, I get it. I'm going to get the moon deck, and it's just gorgeous. But yeah, you're saying that you're also, I know you're psychic, and that definitely goes with the cards. But as far as the mediumship, do you use cards for that too? Or is that something separate?
No. Mediumship, past lives, spirit guides, that's all what I call the direct download. But I do mediumship a little different than people are used to. I am not someone who's going to stand in front of 200 people and say, all right, I see someone, his name starts with M, he's in khaki pants, he's carrying an umbrella, vague. So especially when I have 15 minutes, 30 minutes most at an appointment, I want to get right into who you want to get. So I get their dog tags. For instance, my father, Jerome Richard Dorkin, who died in 2001 at the age of 80. Notice that tells me nothing that gets me into the energy right away. And for some reason, my guides will play charades. I just put my hands out to catch the energy and they start moving. This person smoked, this person ate a lot, this person had an accident, this person had surgery. I have no idea why they do it, but they do. And it really works very well. Once we're sure we have Aunt Mabel, then I open up and I will tell you exactly what she is saying. So you have a conversation with her. But because I do that and I will not censor, I won't do it in public, because sometimes what comes out of this face shouldn't come out of a face, of this ethnicity, or it's very, very intense and personal. and there's a chance to heal old wounds. And you don't do that in public. On the other hand, I have done past life galleries. There's an event, First Night Saratoga, here in Saratoga Springs, where New Year's Eve, it's all kinds of events. And I have done 3 past life galleries in a row, just boom, boom, boom. Because someone gives me an obsession, a phobia, a person, a place, and I immediately can grab what they need from the Akashic and tell them what this is about.
That's fascinating. So it's like a download. It just drops in your head, basically.
Perfect example. There was a woman who came to me and said, look, my son is 29 years old. He won't make any decisions without me. He won't live more than a mile away from me. This is not right. What's up? So close my eyes, go to the Akashic. In about 30 seconds, I go, okay, it's 1944, Utah Beach. So this is D-Day. I'm seeing your son. He's on the beach. He's got shrapnel in his leg and he's bleeding out. You're his commanding officer and you scramble over the dune. You drag him to safety. You take some shrapnel yourself too, but you both live. And I open my eyes and she looks at me and she says very seriously, can you see my rank? I said, yes, you were a sergeant. She goes, he's called me Sarge since he was 3 years old and we have never known why.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, and that's validating right there. Very evidential, but, you know, not on purpose, but that's what I love, stories like that. Like I'm very newly opening up to this idea of channeling. Cause like I said, I read cards and I've been reading cards since high school as well. So we have that in common.
This is the book I learned with decades ago and it's still around. It's called Opening to Channel by Sanaya Roman, Sanaya Roman, and Dwayne Packer. It's a great book. They love what they do. They give you all the boot camp stuff to keep you safe. And it is one of the most used books in my library for rookies.
I will check it out. It's so funny because I never knew that I was a channel. It wasn't really probably the last year and a half that I started realizing that it's just the more I grew a relationship with my cards and leaned more into my intuition, the more I would realize like sometimes the card meanings would change in the middle of a reading.
Yes.
And at first it confused me because I thought, well, if I say a different meaning than what I usually say, then aren't I a fraud? You know, that was my initial, response. But then I started learning to just speak and just say it. And then it made sense to them. So I was like, okay.
I'll give you a perfect example. I was reading for a couple in Kitchener, Ontario. And you know that the 3 of Pentacles is a card that usually shows a stained glass window. So it's a church and a guy is working on that. And it usually means mastery or long term or whatever. But I looked at the card and I looked at them and I said, look, I'm really sorry, but what I'm getting from the card is there is a deconsecrated or abandoned church somewhere around here within a couple of miles, and you need to open up a cafe bakery, and I'm thinking they're going to look at me like I'm nuts. They look at each other and they nod and they look at me and say, oh yeah, we know we've been arguing about that one for 2 years. Right there. Don't tell the universe it doesn't know what it's doing. Because when you get information like that, 2 things. Number 1, they get what they need. And number 2, you realize, no, you're not a carny artist, my darling. You are a serious intuitive and you're getting stuff. When we get out of our own way, it is amazing what comes through us.
Yeah, 100%. That's something that like I noticed that when I read for other people, I'm really good at just tapping in as far as that goes. And I've learned to just trust what comes out of my mouth. So that's been a fun journey. But I think the biggest thing that I've had shifting, which is why I'm definitely going to read that book, is now, so I don't get things as direct as what you just shared. That amazing. I hope one day I can do that.
Probably I'm a little older than you are. It's called you've been doing the exercise.
That's fair. But yeah, I've started hearing like words that'll just pop in that I'm like, and it'll come in like pretty, like I had, I shared this before. So listeners might have heard the story, but I very recently did a bridal shower. It was kind of cool because it was one of those ones where like everyone was listening in on each other's readings. So, it was one after the other and they're all really, really landing and really profound. And then I was reading for this one lady who was giving me she's very stoic. There was no signs that I was nailing anything on the head, which is fine. I've just learned to just trust and keep talking because I don't need those signs. It's just validating, but I don't need it. And so she was asking about her purpose. And a lot of what I was getting was basically like, you need to clear up your life because you have so much going on. You're not making space to be able to get in touch with what your purpose is. And as I'm sharing these different things, I keep hearing the word checklists. it just keeps coming in my mind, checklist, checklist, checklist. So I finally was like, I don't know why, but I keep hearing the word checklists. And then the whole room broke out laughing. And then she finally broke and was like, me? Checklists? I don't know what you're talking about. And then she shared with me how she lives out of a checklist. And so that's when I basically was like, okay, so what you're being told is that the checklist is what's holding you back. Like you need to be able to expand and have more space to make space to find out what your purpose is, but you can't if you're overloading yourself.
I'm really glad you didn't say, so your purpose is X, because when people come to me and say, what is my purpose? I refuse to tell them, because your purpose is based on your life challenges, what's important to you, what ticks you off, all of that. I've got a consultation. It's called Sentence of Passion. Your sentence of passion is not who you are or what you do or even how you do it. It's your vapor trail. When you go skidding into heaven on bald tires and fumes in the tank, and God hands you a beer and says, so you have to go, I did this. Isn't it cool? And to do that, I give them 2 pages of homework, but it looks like disjointed questions. It isn't. When we go through that, we see the constant themes that are coming up. And then I help them create their sentence of passion, which becomes their rallying cry to the world. But for anybody to give you your sentence of passion, that's just a should. That's a clean up your room. If someone said to me, you should really be helping build clean wells in Nairobi. No, for one thing, there's snakes in Africa. I ain't going. I'm a herpaphobe. 2, I'm not an engineer. So that just becomes another should that you think you're going to fail. But when the purpose comes from everything that means something to you, you will grab that puppy and ride it like a rocket.
Yeah, 100%. I don't give out purposes. And when people ask about purpose, it's usually, okay, so this is what you need to know around it. And sometimes I'll sense that it's like really, it's like orbiting them. It's trying to connect with them. But it's usually like, what are the blocks? What are the things? Either what are the blocks or what are the stepping stones to help you find it? Those are usually how it comes through. And the way that I like to define purpose is it's something that lights you up. And only they would know that. Only they would know what it is. It just fills them up that way. It's something that lights them up and it gives back to the world in some way. And I feel like it's that both and that can come in thousands of different forms. You know what I mean?
Talents. If someone is great in front of an audience, don't tell them that their purpose is to do research in a library. That's not it.
Well, on the topic of purpose and life's mission, do you really feel like you've discovered it in the work that you've done and the work that you're doing?
Oh, God, yes. My sentence of passion is cross the bridge from fear to fearlessness and fly. When I could take somebody from point A to point B when they thought they couldn't make it, whack them on the shoulder and say, you don't need your a flight plan. Get your wings and I'm living my bliss. But I have done it in every career I've ever had. Actress, author, inspirational speaker, video producer, legal assistant, executive recruiter, writer for the graphic novel series ElfQuest, and psychic. Because it is the vapor trail. It is how you leave a little glance, a little glimmer, a little sparkle in every encounter you make. And you don't have to see it hit either. Trust it's there. You've done what Spirit wanted you to do.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that you can have a purpose in all that you do. It's not even like just the one thing. I've recently started shifting purpose with life's mission, just because I feel like sometimes when people hear purpose, they think it has to be some grandiose thing, and it doesn't. And not only that, but you can, like you said, either what you do, your purpose can evolve, right? It can evolve into something different and change over time, but the foundation piece is still there. What you're doing, the specific work and the gifts that you're bringing to the table is still there. It's just morphing into a different thing. So I love how you're sharing how you have the same, like you said, the vapor trials. I love that. You have that, but it's in all the work that you do. So you're still working with your purpose. It's not just like only as a psychic medium or only as a tarot master, right? It's in all these different facets of your life. And even when you look at, how you show up with personal friends and family, it's all there too. You just have to be able to understand that it's always there. It's not just like a one piece of your life.
Exactly so.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below.
So what is it about the work that you do that really lights you up, that just makes you like, it's the reason you get out of bed in the morning? It's that big why.
I can make a difference in people's lives, but you also have to make a difference in your own. When my father, literally on his deathbed, he was 80, he was terribly depressed. He thought his entire life had been a waste. And I said, Dad, look at the thousands of patients you help heal. When you retired, you got literally mail bags full of thank you letters. And he looked at me and said, honey, I'm glad for them. But if I'm dying feeling unfulfilled, that's not a life. And that is something that everyone needs to take in and realize. When I do my work, if I'm wrestling with something, I guarantee you, at least 4 of my clients at the Psychic Fair will come to me with basically the same problem. And while I'm channeling and pontificating for them, my spirit guides are going, yo, dummy, you listen. I get to help other people. I get to use my theater background. I mean, theater major at Brown, acted in New York. When I get to lecture to 200 people, I do stand-up comedy about You Think a Psychic's Life is Easy. I'm on 2000 watts, baby. And after a life where most of my family thought I was a crazy failure because they all have wonderful careers, they're doctors, they're professional musicians, all of that, I know I'm not a failure. My methodologies are different from theirs, but you can't read 30,000 people in however many years and be a fake. You just can't. So doing my work every day reminds me I am exactly where spirit wants me to be. It's using all of my talents, because when you get your draft notice from spirit and you take it, spirit goes rifling inside to see what you got. With me, again, theater major, acted in New York, I understand stories, character arcs. Words are my drug of choice. I can tell the stories. And I have adored history since I was a wee child. That's why I'm good with past lives. So those are what I love. But I don't beat myself up because I can't do spirit art. I can't draw a stick figure with a sharp pencil and a lot of prayer. Not my wheelhouse. So I have found what I'm good at. I share it with the world. It is making a difference for them. What could be better?
Yeah, and that's a really important message too. The piece where you make sure that you're fulfilling yourself too, because you can be in amazing work and do amazing things and hate every minute of it.
Yes. I have counseled too many clients who are like that. Just can't be done. You will die by inches if that is what you do.
So one thing that I find super fascinating, and it's something that I haven't even really thought about until I started doing this podcast, but just talking to different generations. And I really feel like the newer generation, they're getting closer to getting it right because they're finding themselves sooner. Whereas like people my age who are like the millennials, there's a lot of us that are waking up from the shoulds and the you should do life this way. And this is what we're supposed to be doing, all the stuff. And there's many my age that are going, okay, well, I got all the things. I ticked all the boxes and I'm miserable. And figuring out what, so where is their gift? And so it's like when that's why I like to say when you find your purpose, it lights you up. Like that's the first piece. It's something that you love. And I also love that you mentioned you're leaning into your gifts. You're not trying to add gifts that aren't you. You're not trying to be someone you're not. You found what you're good at and then you just honed it and you just poured yourself into it. And I think that honestly is the trick. It's finding what you're good at. And then instead of focusing on all the areas that you lack, which is what society tells us to do, instead of doing that, focusing more on your gifts and your strong points. And then at that point, you're able to not only show up in your best as your best self, but the difference you make is going to be more profound. And also what you had mentioned too about how when you do readings, there's messages in there for you too. It's, I get that all the time. I'll be doing a reading for someone and I'm channeling it, and it's, it's really great wise stuff. And then I hear, are you listening? Are you taking notes? Because this is for you too.
Talking about the generations, I'm two above you. I am a boomer. And I've written an article that says be an elder, not a boomer, because boomers, honestly, we had the sweet spot. We did. The music, our fashions, the things that we could do for ourselves in the world. When we were the age of the Gen Zs, we never had to worry about being shot in school. We never had to worry that the earth would be possibly uninhabitable in our lifetime. We never worried that we would be beat up, violently set upon because we decided to take a vaccine, who we loved, who we voted for, where we lived. So any boomer that just sits around and saying, why can't they, blah, 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 I just tell them, sit down, shut up, and go to the back of the room. An elder knows that it's our time to step off the stage. Yeah, I know Keith Richards is 80 and he's still, but no, that's an exception. Move and let the younger people take the spotlight. Do not give your advice unless you are asked. And be a third trencher. In World War I, remember, on the history buff, there were 3 trenches in the war. The first one is when people went over the top into battle. Second one held the reserves when the first bunch got shot. The third trench was medical, food, supplies. So an elder being a third trencher means if someone wants to plan a requiem mass and then lunch for the homeless, what do? We cook and we clean up. We leave the social media, we leave talking to people, we leave the spotlight to millennials and Gen Zs so that they put their stamp on it. It's no longer ours to do. Not that we don't have responsibility, which is the ability to respond, but the spotlight should not be on us anymore. And if boomers, and to some extent Gen X now, could realize that, the constant battle between age and youth would stop. And we all might do something to pull humanity away from the brink. But it's going to take that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel like there's definitely a mini war not a mini, there's a war going on between the generations for sure. And it's so funny. A long time ago when I was in therapy, my therapist, I was talking about a family drama or whatever, and my therapist was like, okay, so how old are these people? And I told him their age, and he's like, no, are they a young old or an old, like an older old? And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, are they malleable? Are they open to change? Or are they like an old dog can learn new tricks kind of old? And so that's kind of when I started realizing, like, oh, there's different kinds of aging. There's the aging of feeling like you already know it all and there's nothing else to learn. And then there's the aging of I'm still a student, I'm still growing, I'm still open. And even in my work with the tarot, I've experienced it. When I do readings at events, I don't usually get a lot of boomers, but when I do, it's hit or miss whether or not it lands. It's like sometimes they don't understand what I'm saying at all. It's like they just can't hear me. Especially when there's like a call to action on their end. There's just like, I don't understand, I'm retired. I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And then I've had people reach out to me. Like I had a couple ladies in their mid 70s who reached out to me for readings, and they were really upfront with me. They said, look, we're in our 70s. We understand we probably only have another 15, 20 years here, and we want to do something that makes a difference. And so it's just so, for me, especially being I'm in my mid 30s right now, it's just really inspiring to me because I'm like, okay, that's how I want to age. I want to age that way, where I'm always learning and growing, where I'm not settling and I don't think I know it all. I never want to plateau.
And you will come across as younger. People look at me and say, you can't be 69. And I laugh and I say, well, 2 magic words, no children, takes 10 years off your looks. which is kind of true because when you don't have kids, you're just the biggest kid in the room. But the gift we get, I won't say advantage, but I'll say gift we get when we don't have kids is years passing don't get ground into our face. Diapers, Girl Scouts, high school graduation. Now I'm a grandparent. We're just us. I feel no different in my head than I did when I was 40. Sometimes I want to look and say, who's screwed in my calendar? But I realize how many decades I really have lived. And so there's that, if you will, sweet spot between everything I've been through and the fact that I know to live in the present moment. I don't look at future much because maybe 20 years, the future is yours. The future belongs to the other generations. But that is one of the reasons why I wrote books. I do my podcasts. I guest on other podcasts so that my ideas and my words and my voice will be here when I'm dead.
Yeah, leaving the legacy for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, not having children, that does I can imagine that helps too. I'm a mom to an almost 8-year-old. She's turning 8 tomorrow, and being a parent is not for the faint of heart by any stretch of the
No, it isn't.
But it is really cool being able to kind of see what they're bringing to the table, that generation, and being able to be a generation, being able to stop trauma and what is it called? Cycle breaker, being a cycle breaker.
I've done that as an aunt. One of my most treasured things, he's turning 40 next month, God help me. But my favorite and beloved nephew, when he was 13, he came to me and said, are we our souls or are our souls bigger than us? And I explained I could not really talk to him about that until he was his own man at 18, simply because I didn't want to rock the family boat. But yes, I reach out to the youngsters. And because I've never had kids, the kids trust me because I'm not going to mommy at them. So I do my bit for the next generation as much as I can from this vantage point. All of us are useful.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. So from here, I'd love to shift to what I like to call synchronicity story time. I love stories of synchronicity. I'm sure in the line of work you do, you have plenty of stories up your sleeve, but just, something that just lets you know that you're right where you're supposed to be. You can't explain it. It was just like a cool story to share, I guess. Do you have one of those up your sleeve?
Tons. One of them was the situation with the universe giving me the back problem. The other one just happened. I'm going out to the West Coast. I'm doing a TV show and I'm doing an independent film. You get my old acting chops back. And everything was all set. And then all of a sudden, the director called and said, well, we need you out there 6 days early. Can you make it? And of course, I had already gotten everything arranged. I'm a double Virgo. So your friend with the checklists, oh, I'd see her and raise her. Believe me, boom, boom, boom. And for about 24 hours, I panicked. And then I said, all right, the universe is doing this for some reason. I don't know. Okay. When I just relaxed into it, I got a flight that didn't cost me any more and was out at noon, not having me get a flight at 6 a.m. I will get to see my wonderful artist partner from when I wrote for ElfQuest. She lives in Seattle, where I'm going. I haven't seen her in 26 years, so I'm going to stay overnight with her. All of the plans that I made for my Evening of Enchantment show and readings, that's fine. Since I'm going to be in a hotel for 4 days in Seattle proper instead of all the way up in Friday Harbor, now I can see some of my clients in Seattle. It's not costing me anymore. The universe just took the dice and went, let's try this. The universe plays Dungeons and Dragons. This time, all the dice came up perfect. So that's a synchronicity. Once I stopped arguing with the universe, it said, good, thank you. Go have a cup of coffee. We have it handled. And things rolled out that I could not have expected, but were perfect.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. It's so funny. We again think we know, and then then the universe is like, let's just redirect you. Let's move things along over here. It's one of those, I feel like that's a big part of surrender. Surrender is a big part of that. Yes. And that's hard because it's like you have to trust that there really is something bigger than you that has eyes on what's happening. They could see the bigger picture that we can't see.
That's
And
right.
that's the hard, I mean, at least speaking personally, that part's super difficult. It's funny when I do my readings, it's easy for me. Like I said, I'm able to just kind of remove my ego and just say what comes through and trust that it's supposed to be there. Even the difficult ones where I'm like, do you want me to say that? You know, I just do it and it turns out okay. But when it comes for me personally, not so much. It's like I have to learn how to trust on my own, which is funny because
Yep.
people are, well, you're a reader, shouldn't you know? I'm like,
I have to tell people when they ask about accuracy levels, I'll say, look, even the best of us are only 85% accurate. The only one 100% accurate is God, and he doesn't do Zoom readings. So this is where it is.
yeah. So I think you touched on this final question, but I ask everyone this as a final question. But do you feel like we all have a purpose and a life mission here?
Of course. Otherwise, why are we taking up space? It's when I explain to people that, yes, the soul reincarnates, but this recipe is one and done. Sarah, Corbie will never be down here again. The soul engineers our personality to learn certain things. When I did my work with Robert Schwartz in his book series, karma is basically 5 things: healing, service, contrast, unbalanced energy, and healing of beliefs. So our purpose is not only to help the world be better, but also to learn things to bring back to our souls so the soul can grow. So yes, I mean, there can be some R&R lives where, you know, you get to be born as a size 2 blonde with a permanent trust fund and a perfect marriage and perfect kids. Not very often. Most of us have stuff to go through, but that is how we learn.
I love that. Are in our lives. I'm sure we've all had them at some point.
We have to on occasion, but not all that often.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely, one thing I've learned, because before I found tarot, I mean, because I've been reading since high school, but before I found it more professionally and in my spirituality, I didn't have a spirituality. I grew up Christian, and then I denounced Christianity in my late teens, and then I was like agnostic for the next like 12 years. And then when I found my spirituality, that was like my first step into this work. That was when I was like, okay, well, and this was before I even knew I was going to read tarot professionally. In fact, when Spirit brought it up to me, I was like, I'm not going to be a tarot reader. I said no to it like 3 times because I was like, no one could take me seriously. I was too afraid to like fully embody it. But when I was finding my spirituality and I was like learning different ideas and figuring out what resonated and what didn't, one of the things that resonated with me was this idea that basically because I never believed in reincarnation. I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand the purpose of it. And so when I started again, like learning my spirituality and learning about reincarnation, I started realizing like, oh, this is source basically playing out different experiences through us. And that suddenly made sense to me. Like, so every lifetime we're learning something new, and we're you know, and it's a different aspect that only we can bring in the aspect that we do. So we're source, but we're also an individual that's giving source a different experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense to me. And that was basically when I signed up to the like, okay, there's definitely past lives. You know, I'm subscribing to this idea because it makes sense. But yeah, so I like that you brought that up because I don't think that's been brought up yet. That's a different aspect that hasn't been touched on. But part of our purpose is growth in, you know, and unfortunately that's part of the growing pains that we see here while we're here, but it's all for our highest good ultimately.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So if our listeners want to work with you and get a reading with you or past life or any of that stuff, how can they find you?
Oh, Sarah, they can't avoid me. I'm all over. The best thing to do is to go to my website, CorbieMitleid.com. I've got a couple of dozen readings and consultations. I've got over 100 articles. There's my own, you know, little bitty podcast there at Psychic Sailbridge Road. You can also find me on YouTube. You can find me on Pinterest. You can find me on Instagram. And if you want to start working with me, serious student one-on-one, go find me at Patreon.
Perfect. I will be sure to put that in the show notes so they can find you a little bit easier. And this has been such a cool conversation. It's fun to talk to a fellow reader, fellow professional reader. I don't think I've actually had a professional reader on here yet before. So I super appreciate it, especially hearing, you know, kind of what I'm hoping to project for my future, if that makes sense. So it's kind of,
Mhm.
it's cool to see like what you're doing and I'm like, okay, so see, it's possible. I could do that too. So
Yes.
it's very
Yes.
cool.
It takes time. It's a lot of work, but when you hit that sweet spot, just keep running, baby, because you will never have more fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your wisdom.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.